You're listening to the Current Plays Podcast, Season 3, Episode 28, A Feast for Odin. Now please welcome your hosts, Jordan and Thomas. And welcome back, Viking listeners. This week we are talking about A Feast for Odin, a classic game. This one designed, of course, by Uwe Rosenberg. The artist is Dennis Lohausen.
Interesting. Yeah.
And published by Führerlandspiel. This game plays 1 to 4 players, and it has a BGG weight rating of 3.87 out of 5.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Which I think is weightier than On Mars, right?
Interesting. You know what? Like, I understand why they weight it sort of that way. I think it's weighted kind of high.
Yeah.
But it's because there's so many actions you can take, and so many different sort of avenues you can go in this game, right? There's no one size fits all strategy for this. Yeah.
So before we jump into it, I just wanted to quickly announce next week there won't be a regular episode because next week is Breakout Con in Toronto. So we won't be playing our regular game night, but we will be going to Breakout Con and playing games for 4 days straight, which is amazing.
Yes.
And we'll try to record some stuff there and give you guys a bonus episode. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Looking pretty forward to it. So yeah, pretty excited. Yeah.
But with that out of the way, Thomas, tell us about A Feast for Odin.
Yeah. So Feast for Odin, it's a pretty interesting one where it's a combination of sort of worker placement and I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, but polyomino. Oh, that was really good. I impressed myself. Placement, right? So Uwe is kind of known, especially more recently, for a lot of these kind of spatial puzzle games. The Patchwork is one that's more recent, I suppose. That is definitely, you're filling shapes onto a board, making a quilt, right? But in this one, you're filling up sort of this home board, this Viking board, of all the sort of gear and plunder that you are going out and collecting during 7 rounds, right? So two kind of play styles for this one. There's a 7-round game and there's I think 5 or 6 round version.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the 7 extended round is the rule book says it's the proper way to play it. But if you're, introducing newer players, you might play a shorter round. We play the full thing because, and honestly, I don't know why you wouldn't want to play the full thing. It gives you more gameplay kind of thing. I mean, if you're tight for time, maybe, I guess. But yeah, you get the full game experience if you play the full 7 rounds. So what that means. So this game, like I said, complexity is probably up there because we played, my son and daughter and I just set it up upstairs tonight and ran through a round. I was showing them how to play it.
Really?
And yeah, and Benjamin counted out, I think he said there was 64 action squares that you can go on. Now in a 2-player game, 1 and 2 players, so solo and 2-player game, it's less. Probably like 40 actions, maybe 45, something like that. But those are different locations you can send your workers to do things. Again, seems like, oh my goodness, 65 actions, 45 actions, that's insane. But really they're broken into various sort of spaces. Like some are just like strictly you're going to get food resources here, or you're going to get kind of like, even separating those, you can get vegetable resources here, or you can get meat resources here, or you can get cattle over here, you can build stuff over here. And so it's separating in that sort of sense that it's not, you're never looking at every, all 65 actions going, what do I do this turn? I'll go through
Right.
each one and figure out which is the best option, right? There'll be a handful of ways you can go for sure. And that'll take time. And we definitely, it took us like 4 hours to play this game.
Yeah.
So there was definitely some time where you get your turn, and especially if someone went where you were expecting to go, and then you got to, okay, how am I going to re-plan out my
Right.
steps forward, right?
But like,
Um,
for example, the beginning of the game, now, if you're not used to the game, you look at all these spaces and you go, wow, what am I going to do? Like with my first turn, right? First turn is an important turn.
yes,
But realistically, like a lot of like half the board, right? You either need money to take the action or you need a ship to take the action. Like there are prerequisites to take the action that you just don't have access to at the beginning of the game.
that's exactly it.
Start
Yeah.
with no money.
Yeah.
So like it really there's half the board is just off the table.
Yeah.
And then so then that narrows it right down. And there's really only probably what, let's say six actions or so, like,
On that first
around
turn.
there that you
Yeah.
can actually take at the beginning of the game.
So your first turn often becomes, okay, I want to do this round. How do I make that happen? Right.
Right.
And I'll give an example. So in our
I think that's
game,
every round.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So in our game, the first thing I wanted to do was there's these exploration boards that essentially add an additional player board with a bunch of negative points to it that you can cover, and I'll get into how that works shortly. But you could add these exploration boards. Well, I knew I wanted to grab one of these fairly quickly. So how do I get that? Okay, first I got to build a boat. Okay, in order to build a boat, I need to get a wood. And in order to need a wood, I have to take an action that gets me that resource, right?
Right.
So that was three separate turns of various worker, placement actions, right? So I might have to take, multiple workers, and I'll explain how that works right now. So essentially, the board is separated into spaces that you put one worker on, spaces that you put two, three, and four workers on, right? So you might start the game first round with six workers, but if you place them on a spot that requires three workers, there goes half your, you know, worker population essentially, right?
Hmm.
For that, first in one turn kind of thing, right? So the way I had to do that was, okay, I want wood. So I had to go, and I think I spent two workers to grab wood the first time, right? Now I have four workers left. Then I had to go to that next spot after you had your turn to build a boat. Okay, now I've built a boat. Now I have to go and explore that other island. Okay, so I place a worker there. And by that time, I'd taken three actions to do the thing I wanted to do, right? And then it became I had these job cards is something you can get, and what I like about the job cards, because you're right. So you look at the board, there's 60 things you can do, but there's only like a handful that you actually can do, at least like the first turn of the game. Um, but you start the game with a job card, and that it's the sort of mechanic that gives you an idea of where you should focus your first round, maybe, right? Because these job cards give you some sort of bonus. In my case for this game, it was whenever I take a craft action, which is a selection of like 8 different worker placement spots, I could get a free resource, right? So I
That was
wanted the,
crazy.
yeah, it was a great card. I used it the entire game. It made my game, right? It really, I didn't waste that card. But everything in this game, it's like that, right? Like it's, so you get a card at the start, but you can't just play this card. It's actually a worker placement spot that you got to go to play the card. But you
Hmm.
want to make each of these placements as efficient as possible, right? So like the place that allows you to place a card, if you only use one worker, then you have to pay a cost to go there and you get a coin and you can play a card, right? But if you play two workers, you don't have to pay a cost and you can play two of these job cards down. Well, now you're like, okay, well, that's cheaper, but it costs two workers, but I only have one card. So maybe I want to collect a card first so that I could take that spot and play the two cards, right? So it's a lot of efficiency of actions is what you're trying to figure out. And essentially, yeah, that's what you do. So it's a worker placement game to do these various actions. And then you collect these goods, and those goods come in various shapes and sizes, right? So you start off with your home board, which is a giant grid of squares, and you can place these goods onto that board and cover up that grid. Now, some of the grid, as you fill it out, will increase your income from round to round, which will gain you more coins. And the coins are great for versatility. For A, you can spend them to do various actions, might have a cost in coins, or you might buy a ship with it as a free action, right? Now that gets you away from having to get the wood resource to build a ship and then take the two actions to actually get a ship, right? But it costs you gold or silver. The silver also is a victory point um, kind of condition at the end of the game too. So you're trading in silver for for resources or whatever, and that's using up your potential victory points, right? But it's very versatile because you can use it also to fill up your board or to pay your workers at the end of a round, so you don't have to feed them. Um,
Yeah, and I love how okay, there's two things I want to talk about quickly.
yeah,
One, uh having the having the worker placement slots broken into four different like one worker, two worker, three worker, and four worker actions. It's deceptively brilliant because, like you said, it's all about efficiency, and you're really tempted to, especially at the beginning of the game, you only have a few workers. It gives like six workers to start. You can, yeah, spend more workers on better actions, but then you get fewer actions, or you're spending fewer workers on sort of maybe less efficient actions. And then, like you said, there's usually a cost, and that trade-off of what is the most efficient this round, it
yeah,
it's great. It makes for really great choices. Like in our game, first round I got three actions because right away I went on a three worker action slot. But that got me enough resources to carry me through like several rounds of the game.
sure, yeah, absolutely,
So,
yeah.
it was kind of worthwhile, right? But then I took a three worker action, a two worker action, and then a one worker action. That was my first round.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
my first round lasted a lot longer because I did like one two worker action, and then the other four were all single worker actions. So I got, six actions in one round versus your three, right? Now, again, the efficiency thing, those bigger actions for you earned you more resources. And then I didn't coast on the resources. Now I happen to have that card that helped me gain
Yeah.
resources.
Yeah, you did.
So that worked out that way. But yeah, and the aspects of there's so many different like avenues you can take, right? You can go a heavy kind of pillage, go and try and pillage your way as a Viking and earn victory points that way, right? So you go out, you're collecting, say, weapon cards that are swords, and the stone resource, which both of those can help improve your pillaging aspect, so the pillaging actions. And then you can go out and you can pillage and you can steal sort of the blue items. So these items are,
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about next.
yeah, they're separated almost in like the best way I can describe it is like a rarity, right? So you have your very common orange items that sort of level up to the red items. which level up to the green items and then finally level up to the blue items. Now, the blue items are the most rare, the hardest to get, but they're the easiest to place on your board. The green items, less common than the more common stuff. The other two colors before it.
Well, let's say
Yeah.
so your orange and your red items are food.
Yes.
So orange is like vegetables, red is usually meat or well, I should say animal products
Yep.
because there's milk in there too.
Yep. Yep.
And then your green and your blue are goods.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
green is like
Simple goods, kind of.
simple
Yeah.
goods, yeah, like linen and hide and stuff like that. And then blue is like jewelry
Yeah.
and,
More refined. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, when you're placing on your player board, blue can be placed pretty much anywhere you want next to whatever it needs to go to. Like you don't care. You just place it in to the best of the placement you can. So you take advantage of its of whatever squares you're blocking, right? Um, but green, on the other hand, again, you can only put these two colors, so blue and green, onto your player mat, your initial player mat. And the green is not allowed to, any green item is not allowed to be side by side with another green item. So you're sort of trying to like manipulate your board so that, okay, I'll put a green item here and then I'll surround it with blue, and then I could put another big green item here. But you don't want too many green items because they're more strict to place. But you also do want to use them because they're easier to get the green, and it's like one more step to get to blue, right? So it's kind of like, okay, I got to manage that. I have green and it's easier for me to get the green than it is the blue. But because I'm placing them, I'm messing up my placement order here. So it has to make sense how I place them on the board, right? And that's a very interesting aspect
Mhm.
of this game that typically like you take something like Patchwork, like I had mentioned, doesn't have that. They are pieces of a quilt that you just fit in like a puzzle. Well, this is an added aspect of, you got that puzzle, but you got different colors of the puzzle that need to be placed in a specific way, right?
Yeah, and you can't put food on your main board.
No food on the
Food
main
goes
board. Yeah.
towards the feast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then you've also got on the board, you've got more restrictions. One being there are bonus spots that once you surround that spot with your plunder, um, you'll get that item every round.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other restriction is you've got income is on your board, and it kind of goes up in a diagonal from lower left to upper right. And in order to earn that income, actually, in order to cover up that spot, you have to have everything below it, like to the side and below, already covered up for that row and every row and every row and column down and below it.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of, yeah, placing your plunder on the board. You have to fit things in and around things, and it makes it, yeah, real interesting.
It does. And like it makes you, so you have sort of these values of these goods where the more space a good takes up, theoretically, the more valuable that good is. And to a degree that is true. But early on, if you have a item like that, it's very hard to place it onto your board because early on your board, especially near where those income kind of growth is, there's a lot of those bonus spots that if you surround, right? Now, if you place something over top of it, you just don't get that bonus, right? So you have to, if you're going sort of the bigger stuff, well, I don't want to place this here because I'm going to miss out on this bonus item. So you're
Yeah.
trying to get smaller stuff to, fit around so you could surround these smaller things to get the bonuses. But then that seems less efficient as well because you're like, well, if I just get the big stuff, I just like cover this entire board quickly. but then I don't get the bonuses, which will help me get some of the bigger stuff too, right? So it's a really it's a neat puzzle to figure out what the best way to do that. And then they add this other aspect of it is like once you start to kind of like progress through the game, so you get like halfway through the game, then the biggest thing becomes, okay, I've built this sort of engine to get these bigger items or whatever, and now I can actually place them on my board. Where your board is full of negative victory points. So, like almost half of these squares on the board are -1 point, right? And I think there's like 40 of them that are just -1 point, right? And if you leave them uncovered by the end of the game, they score negative points, right? So that becomes the second half of the game where you're trying to cover those aspects of the board to cover up the negative points, essentially earning you points,
Right.
earning you not negatives, right? Yeah, so that becomes kind of like its own puzzle to figure out that as you kind of like progress from the start. You're like, okay, now I really want the big items because I can quickly block off chunks of like 12 points at a time,
Yep.
right? And then
Yep.
boom, boom, boom. But again, placement wise, if you have a green in there, it might throw that off. And then all of a sudden you're trying to get like weird shaped things to fit so that you can, oh, I left this like small little alcove over here, and now I got to fill that up with, less efficient goods to block it out. So it
Yep.
becomes very interesting, right? And then as you add additional boards, right? If you get some of the exploration boards, or if you get some of the buildings, so you can build sheds and houses and whatnot, which come with additional, player boards with more of these squares you can fill up, and more goods and more income you can unlock, sort of thing, but more negative points as well, right? So you kind of want to grow into those, but then you also have to keep in mind that like you need to be able to place stuff to cover up the negatives of getting those boards.
Yeah, those
What's
exploration boards are particularly neat because, like, for example, one of them, I think it's like if you get that board, it's worth 36 points, but there are 40 of those -1 spaces on them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
it can be a lot of points if you can fill that board up. And of course, you want to fill your main board up too. So it's,
It's really interesting too because we both like on our final round, it was one of those things where you kind of like you look at those boards and you go, okay, ton of negatives, but if I can buy one of those boards and then put any big item on it, I can cover, even if I only cover like, let's say 10 spots, which is a big item or something I put on there, I can cover 10. This 36 point, you know, board with 40 negatives now only has 30 negatives. So now that action was worth 6 points to me, right? So you
hmm,
start to like figure out those, okay, can I earn more than 6 points in this turn? No, then that's a good action kind of thing, right?
yeah,
And then depending on how like the rest of the thing, you might end up with like, oh, I got this. If I place these pieces in a certain way, then I'll have this extra piece that I can place over on this board. And you did this with part of your placement on your main board. You were like, well, I could put this two-piece spot on my board, but I waste one of the two-piece, right? So instead, you were like, I'll spend one of my coins, which is a victory point, but then I'll get that two-piece onto my exploration board, and I'll cover two negatives. So
yeah,
I'm up 1 point overall, right? So,
right.
but just like little like tweaks like that, it's really neat that you can kind of manipulate the board that way, right? Just to eke out those points, especially around the last round, right? Where you're trying to go, okay, could be close. I just want to be ahead a little bit, right? So yeah, yeah, it's a very very neat game in that aspect. And like I said, like with so many actions, you can go the Viking route, you can go the raising of sheep and cattle route. And that's got, the game we started upstairs with my kids. My daughter right away was like, "Oh, I want to get sheep." So she bought a sheep first round, and then anytime you have two sheep, one of them you breed them during a certain phase. and then one of them will be pregnant. And then on the following round, that pregnant sheep will give birth to a new sheep. So now you went from two sheep the round before to having a free third sheep, and each sheep is worth victory points. And so and then you could also shear the sheep and get wool off them, which you
Yeah.
can then turn into a blue resource by upgrading the wool to I think the wool turns into like flips over to a treasure chest. So maybe not a connection there, but it's yeah, the wood becomes treasure. Um, yeah, so like, but those are the types of things you can do, and you can kind of go that route where you're, a sheep herder if you decide that route. Or in my case, when we played, I'd say I'd consider myself a craftsman because, I had a card that was a craftsman card that allowed
Right.
me to really take advantage of those 8 spots on the board. So that's what I did. It was often, converting resources to say, one of the yellow resource straight to a green resource, and then two of these green resources into a shirt, which is like the one step under the best item. Take that with a grain of salt. The most coverage item, I suppose, right?
Right.
So it's one upgrade away from the most coveraged blue item, right? So
Right.
I was able to really produce these shirts from round to round and take up a bunch of spaces on my boards, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And I, we've played this. Well, the first time we played this was last year,
At
almost
Breakout Con.
exactly a year
Yeah.
ago at
Yeah.
Breakout Con. We played it a couple of times, and I think every time. So I've played this 3 times now, and every time, like we've done sort of different strategies, right? Like I remember there was one where you got a lot of boats, and then you what is it, emigrated with
Yeah.
them.
Emigrated. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So again, this is an action you take, and then you're flipping over your boats, so you can't use them as boats anymore. But then they get like a huge point boost. And
Yeah.
it actually, the one thing we haven't talked about in this game is the feast.
Yeah, the actual feast for Odin. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got basically a number of slots along the top of the board. And this is where your workers are coming from. So every round you get an additional worker to go take actions with. But then, you got to feed your workers, you got to feed your people. So there's a bunch of slots that you have to fill, and then as your workers are coming off, it's getting more and more and more. So you have to
Yeah,
get
you're
more
adding
food.
additional slots. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
uncovering additional slots. Yeah.
yeah, so even that works kind of like the polyomino thing. Um, it's not like a grid with an X and Y, it's just the X, but your food can be like really long. It can be squares, small or big. And then you've got to fit them across, and your oranges can't touch oranges, your reds can't touch reds. So you gotta break it all up, and your people can eat money apparently, so you can break it up with money.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
have two of the same thing, you have to turn it on its side. So if you like wheat, for example, I think is 4 squares long, but one tall. So you can put in one wheat and it's great. But if you put in another wheat, now it's only taking one space where it should take four.
Because you're placing it vertical. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because you're placing
Yeah.
a vertical. So now it's very inefficient, right? So that's just a cool. And if you can't feed your people at the end of the round, you get a -3 point thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
literally
It's
called
called
a
a thing.
thing.
Yep.
Uh, comment, leave a comment if you know why it's called a thing.
You know what? To be honest, actually, with that, and I probably could tell you. So this game comes with a rule book, it comes with an appendix, and then it comes with like an almanac. And the almanac
Okay.
is just full of like information and why they included specific things in the game. And I bet you I could look up why do they call it thing, and it would be in that almanac. I like briefly opened it up, going, okay, where's the rule for this? And going, this isn't a rule book. And then it was like, oh, and then it started to talk about like the different, like the whaling ships and the different Viking ships. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. It's a bunch of information that I'd love to read if I ever find the time to actually go
Right.
through it, right? But yeah, kind of a neat, little add-on to mention that you brought that up. It triggered my memory there. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's so yeah, you had that whole feast thing that again, it's another thing to sort of manage and make sure you have the right resources at the right time. And
Right.
every round, this is an interesting thing. So as you move through phases. So the first phase, you get your new worker. The second phase, you have a harvest um, phase. And depending on the round, you will harvest all the, vegetable style foods for the round, right? And early on, like the first two rounds, first round, you get like three level one um, orange resources. So those vegetable resources. And then second round, you get four resources, three of the level ones, and the only level two food resource, right? Like the vegetable resource. Then round three, you get no harvest, right? And then round four, you get a harvest. Round five, you don't. Round six, you do. Round seven, you do, right? So you're like, you can feed your people with the harvest stuff, but if you don't manage it properly, if you start to use it to upgrade to different things or whatever
Yeah.
you might find on a round where you don't do a harvest anything, you're like, oh, I'm really short on food. Yeah. Yeah. And then you're feeding your people all your victory point coins. You're like, oh yeah, eat this so I don't yeah, lose 3 points on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but and then that's the other thing. So you work through these phases, and I find the phasing very interesting too. So you do that, then you have a phase where these exploration boards, if nobody takes them, um, they can upgrade. So they'll flip over to their flip side, and it'll be almost like a better island, or maybe not better, but like different usefulness depending on what your strategy is this game, right? So that might flip over and give you access there. And then you move into you get a free combat card each round on the next phase, and the next phase after that is take your actions back and forth. And then you determine your player order. So whoever acted last on the prior round will act first for the next round, right? So that's something to keep in mind as well. So if you're quickly going to those fours and three spaces, you're giving your opponent first turn next round kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, or allowing them to keep first round if they started as well. But after that, and this is where I find it interesting. So you get your income in this next step, and that income occurs before the feast phase. So you could really leave it where you have gaps in your feast because you plan to use some coins from your income, right? And not only that, so okay, so you can place those there. You also can place these coins onto your player mats to, we talked about the bonus resources to surround them, right? So maybe I only needed one more coin to surround a resource. Well, I waited for the income phase, got that coin, placed it there, surround a resource, and then a few phases later is the bonus phase where you can collect that resource, right? And it gives me the vibes of we talked. It's a Wonderful Kingdom. We reviewed
Right.
a little bit. Where like because of the way stages happen, the phases happen, you might get resources that will allow you to use resources in a future round to get more of something. It's the same thing here, but I find this game does it better. Um,
Hmm.
it's in a Wonderful Kingdom, that's the main thing, which is unfortunate for me to say that it does it better here when it's a small aspect of this game, right? You might not even do that at all in this game because it doesn't
Right.
really work out, but you might. And I used it all the time in the game we played. I was constantly almost starting the next round broke because I spent it in between phases before we got to the next turn. Yeah, no, or the next round rather. Yeah, so that it has that sort of aspect to it where, yeah, there's a lot of planning and figuring out how to efficiently do things. And when you put coins on your player board, sure, great, you're filling up those spots, but the coins take up one square. So they are an inefficient way of doing that, right?
Yeah.
But if it means blocking off, a spot so that you can separate two green items, then probably an efficient way of doing that, right? Or circle like the last spot to circle a resource that you really want to start the next round with. You can make those choices and decide what works best for you, right?
Yeah, I tried not to use the coins on my board as much as possible because, yeah, it's inefficient and coins are scarce. I
They
mean, for
are,
some of
yeah.
us. Um,
Yeah,
which was neat. Like my job card, whenever I gained a cow, I could spend silver to get like a really good item. But at the beginning of the game, you've got no income. Cows cost 3 coins. It's hard to get.
yeah,
It's like a few rounds before you're getting 3 coins per turn. Um, and then the items are costing money, 3 to 4 coins. So it was a bit to set up where, then I finally got 2 cows by
yeah.
shelling out money to get the cows, but then the cows are breeding themselves.
And
And so,
triggering your job card that way without
yeah,
needing to,
yeah.
which was nice. Yeah, for sure.
But then it's only every other round, triggered like a couple of times. But I mean, I tried to make use of that card, but it was nothing like your job card. Those job cards, man, they can really change things.
They really can. Well, I had a couple good ones. So I was collecting a lot of those. I wasn't doing the actions that use the weapon cards. So then I ended up getting a job card that you can convert two weapon cards into an ore resource. Well, I
Right,
was constantly using the ore to basically craft some of the special items, let's say, right? And so that was like, that was working out, and then because it was a craft action, I was drawing from the other job card, so it was like I was able to kind of like use multiple of those job cards to bonus each other, or to trigger each other rather,
nice.
to bonus each other. Yeah, yeah, and it really worked well, right? So, but yeah, this game we've played it like I played it a few times solo. Just a quick thing on solo, plays really well. Essentially, you play as two different colors, but you're all on the same team, right? You're not playing two different teams. So you play with one color one round, and then the next color the next round. Well, you keep the first color on the board blocking those spaces. So that's how you manage, a second player playing is those spots are blocked for you this round, and that's how the
Right.
solo runs. So plays really fun.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a really neat way of doing it. You get the experience of playing A Feast for Odin, um, but a solo version of it, right? So that's kind of nice. It plays really well. But this one, yeah, we've played it 3 times together. I've played it like a total of I want to say 6 times now, and every time I yeah have a ball playing it. Really enjoy it. Very tight. It's definitely going on the right shelf here, which is my top games, great games shelf. I already have a spot for it, so yeah, I'll continue to play this one, and yeah, happy to add this one to my collection.
And that wraps up another episode of the Current Plays podcast. Check us out next week on YouTube or your favorite podcast provider. But until then, good gaming and good night.
Good night, folks.